music. But unfortunately over here we're unable to use it again because of the size of the halls. The stages are just too shallow for us to use rear projection.
Coming back to Britain to get yourself sorted out and to go on the road must almost seem like coming home, because now you seem to use the UK as a recording base.
Oh yes, we spend so much time here, it's ridiculous. We should live here, really. I think out of the last 2 years we spent 6 months of each of those years in Britain between recording and touring. But the last album alone was 2.5 months here.
Why do you choose Rockfield, which is where you recorded?
The last 2 times we've used Rockfield, it's a terrific atmosphere being down in the countryside, and for us we really like, and I suppose in a way need, isolation. And of course it's a great example of that. But the facilities are also very good. We've always sort of really liked the English sound, and when we thought of coming to England, our producer came up with Rockfield, and it proved to be as good as it sounded.
What inspires your songwriting?
Well, I've tried a lot to analyze that, and I suppose a lot of other people have too, and it is very difficult to put into words and facts, but it seems to me that it's an idea that I relate to emotionally, at the same time something that I respond to. For instance, I can use an example of the Hemispheres theme. That conflict between heart and mind, even though I wasn't aware of it in so many words, it's something that, especially as a teenager, you go through to a great degree. But the whole process of maturity involves so much of that conflict. And when I started reading about people putting forward theories about it, it brought it home to me in so many clarifying ways, where I could look at incidents in my life or choices I'd had to make and analyze them now in light of that knowledge. And that, to me, it seemed very important. I can't say that I've ever said anything that someone else hasn't said previously, but it's interesting sometimes to take these ideas and put them into musical form, because my writing is strictly done for music. You know, I don't consider myself to be writing anything but lyrics. You know, they're words written to be sung. And to take some of these kinds of ideas, I think they're good for a singer as well. You know, in the case of a narrative story where I can take it into other worlds and so on, it opens up a whole world of interpretation musically. And in some cases, that's why I came up with the idea, was because of a musical reason. Certain songs, I've had a picture in my head of a certain kind of song, texturally or atmospherically, and I'll think of the lyrics along those lines and how they can be interpreted musically.
Before we started the interview, we were discussing some of the inspiration for your lyrics and ideas, and the name cropped up, a lady philosopher, the word occurs again, Ayn Rand. I have a feeling a lot of people won't know of her particularly, but perhaps you can set her in her own context.
Yeah, she was Russian-born, actually an author and philosopher at the same time, because all of her philosophy has been expanded through novels. Basically, her philosophy is very simple. It's based on freedom of the individual and individualism, you know, in the particular sense. And that was something that I always knew without knowing. You know, it was something that I always felt, but didn't understand mentally to put it into words to myself. And when I first read her books, it was like a confirmation of things that I'd always felt, but now I could understand them on the other side as well.
There was an article recently in one of the British music papers about your lyrics. Did you catch it?
Was it a nasty one or a nice one?
A bit of both, actually. I think they usually are, aren't they? But certainly the man who wrote it seemed to take the point of view that yours was a very right-wing philosophy in a world that is more usually left-wing in the musical circles.
Well, I find it difficult to analyze in right and left-wing. It's a very narrow description of anyone's beliefs. And in fact, left-wing, a lot of their ideals involve civil liberties too. And for myself, I can't be an enemy of, you know, left-wing things, because it's not necessarily, although it disagrees with some things that I believe in, it's not necessarily antagonistic to what I think. Our ideal has been freedom. Again, that stressing of choice. Every musical and professional decision that we've made has been based on the fact that we have the choice. You know, we can say yes or no, whether we'll do this or not. And preserving the integrity of our music too is another choice. But it's not a choice you make once and forget. It's a choice that you make and constantly have to defend and fortify. And I think that's been the basic crux. We've always we have succeeded in not being influenced from the outside. Whatever music comes out of us is what comes out naturally. And it has to excite us, both physically and mentally and also emotionally. It has to excite us first before it'll get past the rehearsal stage, because we're just, in that sense, we're very lazy. We won't work on something that doesn't move us, you know. But if we get excited about it, then we'll work for days and days, you know.
Do you believe that many of the people who listen to your songs do really get into... Oh, you must have letters from them.
Yeah, sure.
What sort of things do people write to you about your songs?
That's another thing that's difficult to generalize. It covers the spectrum of humanity, you know, from gross idiocy to incredible sensitivity. But some people write in and they see exactly what you're going for and appreciate it and understand it, but also maybe pick up something that I didn't see, something that maybe subconsciously slipped into the lyrics that happens to be a very true thing, but I never thought of it in that light. Whatever, you know, you get letters that are totally ridiculous written by illiterate morons, but you get some that you read and go, yes, this person is there. I think you always work towards, or we do anyway, work towards one ideal listener, whether it's on stage or in the studio. There's one person that is perfectly in tune to us and to our music, who we are writing for and recording for and performing for.
Do you have a mental picture of your perfect listener?
Always sitting on my shoulder, you know, when I'm on stage, there's a person wincing at every mistake I make, you know, or anything that I do well. It's a smile from that objective watcher.
There is unrest in the forest, there is trouble with the trees, for the maples want more sunlight and the oaks ignore their leaves.
The philosophy of Ayn Rand and Rush, and some good music as well. The track was called Trees. It's from the current Rush album, Hemispheres. But what does it all sound like live? Now, we sent Ian Penman of BBC Radio Newcastle to see the opening night of the Rush tour, on which they were supported by their Canadian compatriots, Max Webster.
One of the first things that you'll learn about Max Webster is that there's no one in the outfit who's actually called Max Webster, and that apparently they are at the forefront of the new wave heavy metal band coming our way from North America and Canada. On Monday night's showing, the Websters certainly aren't your archetypal thrashers, but then again, they probably aren't much else either. The four-man band all seem pretty competent players, with bassist Dave Miles being particularly prominent, with a punchy melodic style, not unlike the Jam's Bruce Foxton. Their material and approach, though, is pretty run-of-the-mill, and as old-fashioned as their glitter pants and satin kimonos. A pared-down, uncosmic version of Yes, circa 1974. It's only when Max pulled himself away from this touch of techno-flash that he revealed a couple of interesting ideas up his eighth sleeve. Guitarist Kim Mitchell has an occasional berserk line in Manners a cappella, and the effect of Jonathan Richman fronting Yes is at least novel. A polite band who got a polite reception, because everyone, of course, was there to worship at the altars of the High Priest of Syrinx. With a flash of light, a cloud of dry ice, and a mighty hi-ho synthesizer, there was Rush. Pounding, screeching, howling and yelling. Geddy Lee sings like a cross between Pinky and Perky and Tiny Tim, and spends a lot of his time coaxing spacey whooshes and block rhythm chords out of a pair of synthesizers. Special effects crawled out of absolutely everywhere. Crisscross spotlights, explosions, robot voices, and an echo machine that seemed to be permanently switched on to maximum. But all of these kitchen sink tactics couldn't disguise the fact that what Rush dish out is repetitive, pompous, and excessive. A couple of numbers, including Trees, from the last album, Hemispheres, starts out in a restrained, almost melodic manner, but just when you've been lulled into thinking that this one might be all right, the acoustic guitar is cast aside and it's crash, bang, wallop again. Of course, the Rushers ran through their greatest hits, Bastille Day, Farewell to Kings, Road to Bangkok, and a lot of other quasi-mystical rhubarb. The crowd went mad, tossing their hair in time to the poundings, while wrestling with phantom guitars. Me? I thought it was appalling. The rock and roll Mounties didn't get their man that night.
Ian Penman of BBC Radio Newcastle was not impressed, and if I were you, Ian, I'd leave the city right now before the Rush fans get you.
Radio 1.